The sleek, iridescent hull of the Stardust Wanderer cut through the void of deep space with elegant precision. Inside the survey vessel, a diverse crew of beings from across the galactic concord went about their duties with practiced efficiency. The ship's sophisticated systems hummed pleasantly in the background, a stark contrast to the chaotic void they traversed. Commander Quartz stood on the bridge, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he observed the holographic displays. His reptilian features remained impassive, though the slight twitch of his tail betrayed his excitement. As a Vazulian, Kvort valued order and protocol above all else. His species had evolved on a world of mathematical precision, regular seasons, predictable weather patterns, and geological stability. This predisposition made him an excellent commander, but sometimes limited his ability to adapt to the unexpected. "Commander," called Lyra from her science station. The avian officer's feathers ruffled slightly as she manipulated the sensor controls with her wing hands. "I'm detecting something unusual in the next system." Kvort turned to face his science officer. Lyra was a Korvax, a bird-like species known for their scientific curiosity and slightly anxious disposition. Her kind had evolved on a low-gravity world with vast open skies, giving them an instinctive understanding of spatial relationships that made her invaluable as a science officer. "Define unusual, Officer Lyra," Kvort responded, his voice a measured rumble. Before Lyra could answer, a voice chimed in from the communication station. 10 credits, says it's another gas giant with pretty rings. We've seen 12 already this expedition. This came from Zorp, the ship's communications officer. The amorphous molluspoid shifted his gelatinous form in what passed for amusement among his kind. Despite his irreverent attitude, Zorp was exceptionally skilled at detecting and deciphering communication patterns across species. "It's a terrestrial planet," Lyra continued, ignoring Zorp's comment. "But the readings are contradictory. The biosignature index is off the charts, suggesting abundant life, but the environmental parameters are—" She paused, rechecking her instruments. "Are what, officer?" Kvort prompted. "Extreme, sir. If these readings are correct, this planet would qualify as a Class 15 Deathworld." A stunned silence fell over the bridge. The Galactic Concord's classification system for habitable worlds ranged from Class 1, paradise-like conditions, to Class 15, virtually uninhabitable. A Class 15 designation indicated a planetary environment so hostile that even with advanced technology, colonization was considered impossible. Such worlds were typically marked for automated resource extraction at most. "That can't be right," Zorp said, his usual humor absent. "Nothing complex could evolve on a Class 15. The reading must be an instrument error." "I've calibrated the sensors 3 times, Lyra insisted, her crest feathers rising in defense of her work. "The gravity is 1.3 standard. The atmosphere contains several toxic compounds. Weather patterns include regular destructive storms. The biosphere includes numerous predatory species and toxic flora. By any reasonable standard, it's a Class 15 environment." Kvort frowned, the scales around his eyes furrowing. "And yet you detected abundant life?" "Yes, Commander. And—" Lyra hesitated, her wings fluttering nervously. "I'm also detecting artificial structures and electromagnetic emissions consistent with a technological civilization." Kvort's tail went rigid. "Impossible." "Nevertheless," Lyra replied, "the evidence suggests a technologically advanced species has not only survived but thrived on this death world." Zorp slid closer to the central holographic display. "Let me see if I can isolate any communication signals." His translucent appendages danced over the controls. After a moment, his entire body pulsed with surprise. "Commander, I'm picking up structured communication signals. Thousands of them, using various parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. This isn't just technology, it's a complex global communication network." Kvort's disciplined mind struggled to process this information. It contradicted everything the Concord knew about habitable environments. "Prepare a drone for atmospheric entry," he ordered after a moment of contemplation. "We need visual confirmation." The small reconnaissance drone launched from the Stardust Wanderer an hour later, descending toward the blue-green planet below. The crew watched in tense silence as the drone's telemetry streamed back to the ship. Almost immediately, warning indicators flashed across the control panels. The drone's outer shell is experiencing stress from atmospheric friction beyond expected parameters, Lyra reported. Turbulence levels are extreme. Can it maintain stability? Cord asked. For now. Wait. Lyra's feathers flattened in. Alarm. We're experiencing a rapid pressure change. The drone has encountered what appears to be a severe storm system. The drone's visual feed showed dark, roiling clouds illuminated by jagged bolts of lightning. The craft shuddered violently as it was buffeted by powerful winds. These atmospheric electrical discharges are off the charts, Lyra muttered. The storm's electrical potential is nearly twice what our atmospheric entry models predicted. Try to navigate around it, Kvord ordered. Zorp manipulated the drone's controls with surprising dexterity for a being without solid appendages. I'm trying, but this storm system extends for hundreds of kilometers. The drone pushed through the storm, its systems straining against the planet's hostility. After several tense minutes, it broke through the cloud layer, and the visual feed stabilized to reveal the landscape below. By the ancestral void, Kvort breathed, a rare break in his composure. The drone's camera showed a sprawling coastal city. Countless structures of varying heights stretched to the horizon, connected by intricate transportation networks. Vehicles moved along designated paths, while others soared through the air. The city nestled between a turbulent ocean on one side and rugged mountains on the other, a precarious position given the environmental instability. Population density appears substantial, Lyra noted, her voice barely above a whisper. In their technology, they have flying vehicles, large-scale architecture, energy distribution networks. Can we get closer? Kvord asked. I'll try, Zorp replied. But the drone systems are already compromised. That storm did a number on its stabilizers. The drone descended further, providing glimpses of the city's inhabitants moving about their daily lives. The beings appeared bipedal, with varied coloration but similar overall morphology. They look so fragile, Lyra observed. No obvious natural defenses against this environment. No scales, minimal fur, no apparent toxin glands or armor. Yet they built all this, Kvort said, in an environment that should have killed them 1,000 times over. A sudden alert sounded as the drone's remaining stabilizers failed. The visual feed spun wildly before cutting out entirely. We've lost the drone, Zorp announced. Total systems failure. Kvort stared at the last clear image the drone had transmitted. A group of the planet's inhabitants gathering in what appeared to be a recreational area, seemingly unconcerned by the toxic compounds in their air or the storm that had nearly destroyed the Concord's advanced surveillance technology. This discovery changes everything, Kvort said finally. We need to report to Central Command immediately and prepare for a first contact situation. The response from Galactic Concord Central Command came swiftly. The discovery of an advanced civilization on a Class 15 Deathworld was unprecedented and potentially paradigm-shifting. The Stardust Wanderer was ordered to establish initial contact, while a proper diplomatic delegation was assembled. They're sending Ambassador Zalix and a full diplomatic contingent, Kvort informed his senior officers in the briefing room. But given the travel time from the nearest Concord hub, we're instructed to make preliminary contact. Us. Lyra's crest feathers spiked with anxiety. We're surveyors, not first contact specialists. We've all had the basic diplomatic training, Kvort replied. And we did discover them. Zorp's body rippled with what might have been a shrug. I'm just wondering what kind of lunatics evolve on a planet like that. What do we even say? Congratulations on not being dead in a place where everything should kill you. We follow protocol, Kvort said firmly. We transmit the standard greeting package on all frequencies and wait for a response. The standard Concord First Contact package, a series of mathematical sequences, simple pictographs, and basic language primers, was transmitted toward the planet. The response came faster than anyone expected. They've replied. Zorp announced, his gelatinous form vibrating with excitement. And they're using our own communication protocols. They must have analyzed our transmission and adapted their technology to match our frequencies. That's impressive adaptability, Lyra noted. The incoming message contained similar mathematical sequences, along with images of the planet's inhabitants and what appeared to be an invitation. Most surprisingly, it included a rudimentary translation matrix. They've started to decode our language already, Zorp said, genuine respect in his voice. These beings work fast. After several exchanges, a meeting was arranged. The inhabitants, who called themselves humans and their planet Earth, invited a delegation to a designated landing area outside one of their larger cities. The landing party consisted of Kvort, Lyra, Zorp, and 2 security officers. They wore the most advanced environmental protection suits the Stardust Wanderer could provide, sealed systems with reinforced exoskeletons to withstand the crushing gravity and filters to protect against the toxic atmosphere. As the shuttle descended through Earth's turbulent atmosphere, Lyra monitored the external conditions. Oxygen levels are higher than optimal for most Concord species. Numerous volatile compounds present. Radiation levels from their star are concerning. And I'm detecting what appear to be microscopic organisms suspended in the air. Microbes? Kvort asked. Are our suits rated for biological contaminants? Theoretically, Lyra replied, not sounding entirely convinced. Though I doubt the designers anticipated quite this level of biological diversity. The shuttle landed with a slight bump on a flat, paved area. Through the viewport, they could see a group of humans waiting. Surprisingly, they wore no protective gear whatsoever, standing exposed to their world's hostile elements. Either they're much more resilient than they look, Zorp commented, or they're about to drop dead before we even open the door. Maintain diplomatic composure, Kvort reminded them all. Remember, we represent the entire galactic Concord. The landing party cycled through the airlock and stepped onto the surface of Earth. The gravity tugged at them despite their exoskeletons. The wind, carrying particles that registered as hazardous on their sensors, buffeted their suits. One of the humans stepped forward. Welcome to Earth, the being said, the words translated through the matrix they had established. I am Dr. Aristhorn, representing the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. We are honored to make your acquaintance. Kvort stepped forward, moving carefully in the oppressive gravity. I am Commander Kvort of the Galactic Concord Survey Vessel Stardust Wanderer. We come in peace and friendship. Dr. Thorne smiled, a gesture that exposed teeth in what Kvort hoped was a friendly expression rather than a threat display. We're delighted to welcome visitors from beyond our solar system. We've theorized about extraterrestrial life for centuries, but this is our first confirmation. The human appeared remarkably at ease, showing no signs of distress despite standing in what the Concord classified as lethal conditions. Dr. Thorne was of average height for their species, with dark skin and short, curly hair. They wore simple coverings that provided no apparent protection from the environment. Are you comfortable? Lyra couldn't help asking, gesturing to the open air around them. Without protective equipment, Dr. Thorne looked momentarily confused, then understanding dawned. Ah, your suits. Yes, we're perfectly comfortable. This is our home, after all. Perhaps your species evolved in different conditions. Different conditions, Zorp repeated, his translator barely capturing his incredulous tone. You could say that. Kvort maintained his diplomatic poise. We are indeed adapted to environments less challenging than yours. Your world will be classified as extremely hazardous by our standards. Fascinating, Dr. Thorne replied. We have so much to learn from each other. Please allow us to escort you to our welcome facility. We've prepared accommodations that we hope will meet your needs. As they walked toward a nearby complex, Kvort noticed one of the security officers studying his environmental readings with alarm. The planet's hostility was not merely theoretical. It was actively taxing their protection systems. Yet the humans moved with easy confidence. Some even engaged in recreational activities in an open area nearby, tossing a spherical object through the toxic air. The cultural exchange facility turned out to be a hastily modified research center. The humans had created sealed chambers that attempted to replicate what they guessed would be comfortable conditions for the visitors. The effort was commendable, if not entirely successful. "We've reduced the oxygen content and gravity in these rooms," Dr. Thorne explained, "though we're still learning about your physiological requirements. Your adaptability is remarkable," Kvort said, choosing his words carefully. "To prepare all this on such short notice." Dr. Thorne shrugged, a casual dismissal of what must have been an enormous technical challenge. "We're used to adapting quickly. It's sort of our thing." Over the next several days, the cultural misunderstandings piled up like the storm clouds that regularly gathered on the horizon. The human concept of spicy food nearly caused a diplomatic incident when Zorp's translator mistakenly identified a substance called ghost pepper as gentle seasoning. The molluscoid's sensory membranes had required emergency treatment. "Why would you deliberately ingest defensive plant compounds?" Lyra had asked, genuinely baffled as she helped treat. "Zorp's chemical burns. It tastes good," the human culinary specialist had replied with a shrug. "Adds flavor." Similarly, the concept of pets had confused the delegation entirely. The notion that humans would voluntarily share their living spaces with predatory carnivores, cats and dogs, for companionship rather than utility, seemed incomprehensible. "Let me understand," Kvort had said, eyeing a small, furry quadruped that the facility administrator had brought to boost morale. "This creature's ancestors were pack hunters, yet you feed it, shelter it, and allow it near your young? Rover here wouldn't hurt a fly," the administrator had said, as the beast bared its teeth in what was apparently a non-threatening display called a smile. Perhaps most baffling of all was the human concept of extreme sports. Lyra had nearly molted her feathers in distress upon viewing documentation of activities called base jumping, free diving, and volcano boarding. "You do these things deliberately? For enjoyment?" she had asked the human recreation specialist. "Absolutely," the specialist had replied with enthusiasm. "Nothing makes you feel more alive than staring death in the face and winning." Kvort had exchanged glances with Lyra. The concept was so alien it defied translation. What kind of species would seek out additional danger on a world already trying to kill them in hundreds of ways? Meanwhile, Lyra had begun a more systematic study of Earth's ecosystem, with particular focus on how humans had adapted to their lethal environment. Her preliminary findings were causing quite a stir among the Concord's xenobiologists. "Their adaptability isn't merely cultural, it's biological," she explained to Kvort in his temporary office. "Humans can survive in environmental conditions ranging from extreme cold to blistering heat. They can recover from injuries that would be fatal to most sentient species. Their immune systems are constantly at war with their environment, and usually winning." "How is that possible?" Kvort asked. "No single species should be able to adapt to such a wide range of conditions." "That's just it," Lyra said, her excitement causing her feathers to puff up. "I believe it's precisely because of their hostile environment that they've developed such resilience. Earth has forced them to become environmental generalists. While most sentient species evolve in stable niches, humans evolved in rapidly changing conditions that required constant adaptation." Kvort contemplated this. And their technology? How did they advance so quickly in such hostile conditions? "Necessity," Lyra suggested. "When your world is constantly trying to kill you, you innovate or die. Humans have faced extinction-level challenges repeatedly throughout their history and somehow survived each time. It's made them remarkably resourceful." As fascinating as these discoveries were, not everyone in the Galactic Concord was responding with scientific curiosity. The daily reports transmitted back to Central Command had caused considerable alarm in some circles. Kvort was not entirely surprised when a priority communication came through from Admiral Vrex, head of the Concord Security Council. The Admiral's scaled face filled the view screen, his expression severe. "Commander Kvort, your reports on these humans have raised serious security concerns," Admiral Vrex began without preamble. "A species that evolves on a Class 15 Deathworld and not only survives but develops advanced technology represents a potential threat to Concord stability. With respect, Admiral, Kvort replied, we've observed no hostile intent. The humans have been accommodating and eager to establish peaceful relations. Accommodating for now, Vrex countered. But consider their evolutionary psychology, Commander. A species shaped by such a hostile environment must necessarily be aggressive, territorial, and ruthlessly pragmatic. Once they have access to Concord technology and star charts, what's to prevent them from expanding outward? Most Concord worlds will be paradise-like to them, ripe for colonization. Kvort's frill flattened against his neck, a sign of his discomfort with the Admiral's reasoning. That's quite a leap, sir. We've seen no evidence of expansionist intentions. Not yet, Vrex said ominously. I've dispatched the cruiser Inevitable Justice to your location. It carries a full diplomatic delegation, as previously arranged. But also, contingency measures. What kind of contingencies? Kvort asked, though he already suspected the answer. Information containment protocols, primarily. If these humans prove too dangerous to integrate into the wider galactic community, we must be prepared to limit their access to it. The cruiser will arrive in 3 standard cycles. Maintain your diplomatic engagement, but avoid sharing sensitive technological information. Rex out. The screen went blank, leaving Kvort troubled. Admiral Vrex's concerns weren't entirely unreasonable from a security perspective, but something about the approach felt wrong. The humans had shown nothing but goodwill, despite their occasionally baffling behaviors. Kvort's reflections were interrupted by an urgent call from the facility's communications center. Commander, came Zorp's voice, you need to see this. The humans' weather monitoring systems have detected what they call a Category 5 hurricane approaching the region. Is that significant? Kvort asked. According to Dr. Thorne, it's the most severe storm classification in their system. They're evacuating the coastal areas, including our facility. And, sir, they're worried about our safety. Kvort hurried to the command center, where Dr. Thorne was coordinating with human emergency services via their communication devices. Commander Kvort, Dr. Thorne greeted him, looking more serious than usual. We need to relocate your delegation inland. This facility isn't rated for storm surges of the magnitude we're expecting. We can return to our ship, Kvort offered. I wouldn't recommend atmospheric flight for the next 12 hours, Dr. Thorne replied. The wind shear alone could tear your shuttle apart. We've prepared a secure location at our Inland Research Center. Transportation is ready whenever you are. Kvort studied the human's face, seeing genuine concern there. You're worried about our safety, he observed, even though you face such dangers regularly. Of course, Dr. Thorne said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. You're our guests. The evacuation proceeded with remarkable efficiency. The humans had clearly practiced for such emergencies. Their vehicles, ground-based transports with reinforced structures, moved steadily away from the coast as the storm's outer bands began to lash the landscape. From the transport's windows, Kvort could see the ocean churning with mounting fury, waves growing larger by the minute. The sky had darkened to an ominous gray-green, and the wind howled around the vehicle's frame. Your planet seems determined to demonstrate its Class 15 status, Zorp commented to Dr. Thorne, who rode with them in the lead transport. We do get some impressive weather, Dr. Thorne acknowledged with what Kvort was learning to recognize as understatement. Though climate change has made these extreme events more common in recent decades. You speak of planetary-scale weather pattern alterations as if they're a minor inconvenience, Lyra noted, her scientific curiosity overcoming her anxiety about the storm. Oh, it's a major problem, Dr. Thorne corrected. But we're working on solutions. Humanity has faced existential threats before. We'll adapt. We always do. The inland facility was a sprawling complex nestled against a mountain range. It appeared more fortified than the coastal welcome center, with thick walls and what appeared to be energy generation capabilities. Staff were already preparing accommodations for both the refugees from coastal areas and the alien delegation. As they entered the facility's main atrium, Lyra suddenly stiffened, her feathers rising in alarm as she checked readings on her portable sensor. "Commander," she said quietly, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures. Non-human technology. Before Kvort could respond, a group of security personnel from the Inevitable Justice stepped into view, led by a stern-looking officer. Their unexpected presence confirmed Kvort's worst fears. Admiral Vrex had dispatched an advance team ahead of the cruiser itself. "Commander Kvort," the officer said with a curt bow. "I am Major Drax, security attaché to the diplomatic delegation. Admiral Vrex sent us ahead to prepare the ground." Kvort maintained his composure, aware of Dr. Thorne watching the exchange with interested curiosity. "This is unexpected, Major. The Inevitable Justice wasn't due to arrive for another cycle. The Admiral dispatched us on a fast courier," Drax replied. Given the sensitivity of the situation, his emphasis made the subtext clear. They were here to implement Vrex's contingency measures. Dr. Thorne stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Dr. Eris Thorne, Earth's diplomatic liaison. We weren't expecting additional visitors during the hurricane, but we'll accommodate you, of course." Drax regarded the human with poorly disguised suspicion. "Thank you, Doctor. My team has specific security protocols to implement for the upcoming diplomatic meetings. We'll need access to your communication systems and information networks." Kvort interceded smoothly. "Perhaps those arrangements can wait until after the emergency situation is resolved, Major. The immediate priority is safety during this extreme weather event." Something like annoyance flickered across Drax's features, but he nodded stiffly. "Of course, Commander. Safety first." As the new arrivals were shown to their quarters, Zorp slid closer to Kvort. "I don't like this, Commander," he murmured. "Drax and his team have the look of infiltration specialists, not diplomatic security." "I share your concern," Kvort replied quietly. "Keep an eye on their activities, but discreetly. I want to know what Admiral Vrex is really planning." The storm hit with full force that night. Even within the reinforced facility, they could hear the howling wind and the occasional boom of thunder. Rain lashed against the windows with such violence that Kvort wondered if the transparent materials would hold. The humans, typically, seemed to regard the maelstrom with casual respect rather than terror. Many gathered in the facility's central commons, sharing food and engaging in social bonding behaviors. Some even seemed to find the storm exhilarating. "It's magnificent, isn't it?" a human meteorologist said to Lyra as they watched the storm's fury through a reinforced observation window. "All that raw power. You find it pleasant?" Lyra asked, her translator struggling with the concept. "Terrifying and beautiful at once," the meteorologist clarified. "There's something humbling about being reminded that for all our technology, nature still holds the upper hand. It keeps us honest." This perspective was so alien to Concord, thinking that Lyra could only nod politely. Most Concord species had evolved on worlds where nature was, if not entirely predictable, at least reasonably consistent. The idea of finding beauty in deadly chaos was difficult to process. As the night progressed, Kvort noticed Drax and his team moving through the facility with purpose. They appeared to be placing small devices at key locations, communications nodes, power junctions, and data access points. When questioned, Drax claimed they were diplomatic security measures, but Kvort's suspicions deepened. The situation came to a head shortly after midnight. A massive lightning strike hit the facility's main power distribution node, plunging sections of the complex into darkness. Emergency systems activated immediately, but there was a moment of confusion. In that moment, Drax's team moved. Kvort, who had been observing them carefully, saw them converge on the facility's central data hub, where the humans stored their scientific and technological information. "Security breach in the data center," Kvort announced through the communication system. "All personnel respond." By the time Kvort reached the data center, he found Drax's team attempting to download massive amounts of information while simultaneously installing what appeared to be some kind of disruptive device. "Stand down, Major," Kvort ordered. "This action is not authorized." Drax turned, his expression hardening. "My orders come directly from Admiral Vrex. This species represents an unacceptable security risk. We're implementing information containment protocols. What does that mean? Came Dr. Thorne's voice from behind them. The human had arrived with several security personnel. It means, Kvort said grimly, that they intend to cripple your information systems and restrict access to any data about the wider galaxy. Possibly more. A temporary measure, Drax insisted, until the Security Council determines whether your species can be safely integrated into the galactic community. Dr. Thorne's expression remained calm, but Kvort detected a new intensity in their posture. I see. So we're being quarantined before we've even had a chance to introduce ourselves properly. Your species evolved on a Class 15 Deathworld, Drax stated flatly. Your biological and psychological adaptations make you inherently dangerous. The Concord has protocols for such situations. Before the confrontation could escalate further, the entire facility shook violently. Warning alarms blared throughout the complex. What was that? Drax demanded. One of the human technicians checked a monitoring station. Landslide on the eastern slope. The rain has destabilized the hillside. We've got multiple breaches in sections 3 through 7, and the water retention system is failing. Evacuate those sections immediately, Dr. Thorne ordered. All attention now focused on the new threat. Get everyone to the central hub and the western wings. The storm's shifting, another technician reported. We're now on the path of the eye wall. Maximum sustained winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. Kvort had never seen conditions deteriorate so quickly. One moment they were facing a tense diplomatic standoff. The next they were in a life-or-death struggle against Earth's murderous environment. We need to stabilize the eastern retaining wall before the entire hillside comes down on us, Dr. Thorne announced. Engineering team, with me. That's suicide, Drax protested. No one should go out in these conditions. Dr. Thorne gave him a look that somehow combined pity and determination. People's lives are at stake. We don't have a choice. Kvort made a decision. I'm going with you, Doctor. Lyra, Zorp, coordinate evacuation of any injured to the secure areas. Commander, I must protest, Drax began. Noted, Major. Kvort cut him off. But right now, survival takes precedence over security protocols. Outside, the full fury of the Class 15 Deathworld was unleashed. The wind nearly knocked Kvort over despite his exoskeleton. Rain lashed his protective suit with such force that the impact sensors registered each droplet as a micro-collision. Visibility was reduced to mere meters. The human engineering team moved with practiced efficiency, somehow maintaining their footing in the gale force winds. They quickly assessed the failing retaining wall that held back the saturated hillside looming over the eastern wing of the facility. The hydraulic supports are failing, the lead engineer shouted over the storm. We need to redirect the water flow and reinforce the main stress points. Kvort was impressed by their rapid problem-solving under extreme pressure. The humans didn't waste time lamenting their situation or seeking perfect solutions. They immediately began implementing imperfect but workable fixes, adapting their plans as new problems arose. Working alongside the humans, Kvort gained a new appreciation for their capabilities. They were physically weaker than many Concord species, but their endurance was remarkable. They continued working past the point where most beings would have succumbed to exhaustion, seemingly drawing energy from the emergency itself. As they fought to stabilize the retaining wall, Kvort's communication device activated. Zorp's voice came through, distorted by static. Commander, Drax's team is attempting to access the facility's central systems again. I think they're trying to use the emergency to cover their actions. Before Kvort could respond, a massive section of the hillside gave way above them. Dr. Thorne shouted a warning, pushing Kvort clear of the debris path with surprising strength. The human was not so fortunate, disappearing beneath a cascade of mud and rock. Without hesitation, Kvort plunged toward where Dr. Thorne had vanished. His suit's enhanced sensors detected a faint life sign beneath the debris. With strength born of urgency, he began clearing away the mud and broken trees. He found Dr. Thorne partially buried, one leg pinned beneath a fallen tree. The human was conscious but clearly in pain. That was unnecessarily heroic of you, Kvort said as he worked to free them. Dr. Thorne managed a tight smile. Says the alien digging through mud in a hurricane to rescue someone they met a week ago. Working together with the human engineers, they freed Dr. Thorne and stabilized the remaining retaining wall enough to prevent immediate collapse. As they made their way back to the facility, Kvort received another urgent communication, this time from Lyra. Commander, you need to return immediately. The situation has escalated. Inside the facility, Kvort found chaos. Drax and his team had barricaded themselves in the central control room, while human security personnel and the rest of the Stardust Wanderer's crew were gathered outside. They've locked down the environmental systems, Lyra explained urgently, and they're transmitting some kind of signal to the inevitable justice. What kind of signal? Kvort demanded. Request for immediate extraction, along with recommendations for containment measures for the entire planet. Zorp replied, his gelatinous form rippling with agitation. Commander, I think they're planning to implement isolation protocols. Maybe worse. Kvort understood the implications immediately. Isolation protocols could range from communication blackouts to orbital deterrent platforms designed to prevent a species from expanding beyond their home system. In extreme cases, they could include measures to limit a civilization's technological development. Can you block the transmission? Kvort asked. The storm is actually helping with that, Zorp replied. Their signal is having trouble penetrating the atmosphere. But once the eye passes, they'll have a clear transmission window. Kvort turned to Dr. Thorne, who was having their injured leg treated by a medic. I need to stop them. This action is not authorized by the Concord as a whole, only by a faction within it. What do you need from us? Dr. Thorne asked without hesitation. Access to the control room, and your word that your people will not respond with violence, regardless of provocation. I need to resolve this within Concord protocols. Dr. Thorne nodded. You have it. But hurry. According to our meteorologists, the eye of the storm will pass over us in approximately 20 minutes. Working with the facility's engineers, they managed to override the control room security locks. When the doors slid open, Kvort found Drax and his team arrayed defensively around the communication array. This is mutiny, Commander, Drax stated, his hand hovering near his sidearm. No, Major, Kvort replied, stepping forward with deliberate calm. This is me preventing an unauthorized action against a potentially valuable ally. The Concord does not make decisions about an entire species based on the paranoid assessments of a single admiral. These humans evolve in conditions that breed aggression and cunning, Drax insisted. Once they have access to Concord technology, they'll spread throughout the galaxy like a plague. Admiral Vrex is simply being proactive. Look around you, Major. Kvort gestured to where humans were visible through the control room windows, working tirelessly to save both their own people and their alien visitors from the storm's fury. Do you see aggression? I see cooperation, self-sacrifice, ingenuity. Yes, they evolve in harsh conditions, but that's made them problem solvers, not conquerors. Drax hesitated, and Kvort pressed his advantage. The storm's eye is approaching. You have a choice to make. Follow Admiral Vrex's paranoid directive, or wait and observe these humans as the Concord's full diplomatic delegation intended. Once they arrive, all the evidence can be presented fairly. For a tense moment, Kvort thought Drax might resort to violence. Then, unexpectedly, one of Drax's own team spoke up. Sir, I've been monitoring these humans since we arrived. Commander Kvort's assessment matches my observations. Perhaps we should wait for the full delegation. Drax's resolve visibly wavered, and if they prove dangerous after all, then appropriate measures can be taken with the full authority of the Concord, Kvort replied. Not as a preemptive strike based on theoretical risk. After a long moment, Drax lowered his hand from his weapon. Very well, Commander. We'll wait for the diplomatic delegation, but I will include my security assessment in my report. As is your right, Kvort acknowledged. Now, I suggest we all focus on surviving this storm. That's challenge enough for one day. As the crisis in the control room de-escalated, The facility's sensors indicated the hurricanes I was passing directly overhead. The sudden silence after hours of howling wind was almost disorienting. Outside, the clouds parted briefly to reveal a circle of clear, star-filled sky. A momentary respite before the storm's second half would hit. In that brief window of calm, Kvort joined Dr. Thorne outside in the facility's central courtyard. The human leaned on a temporary support for their injured leg, but insisted on checking the facility's exterior integrity personally. "Your Major Drax isn't entirely wrong, you know," Dr. Thorne said as they examined damage to the building's outer walls. "Humans can be dangerous. Our history is filled with conflict, and we've nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. Yet here you are," Kvort observed, "working to save everyone in this facility, including those who would have restricted your future." Dr. Thorne smiled. "That's humanity too. We contain multitudes, Commander. Our harsh world taught us to fight for survival, yes, but it also taught us that cooperation is often the best survival strategy of all." The peaceful moment was interrupted by shouts from within the facility. Kvort and Dr. Thorne hurried back inside to find Lyra coordinating what appeared to be an emergency response. "The western slope is destabilizing," she explained urgently. "The water diversion systems are failing. We have people trapped in the lower levels. The hurricane's back wall is approaching," a human meteorologist added. "We have maybe 10 minutes before conditions deteriorate again." What followed was a desperate race against time. Human and alien alike worked side by side, freeing trapped personnel, reinforcing failing structures, and rerouting power to critical systems. Even Drax and his team set aside their suspicions to assist in the emergency. Kvort found himself in the midst of the crisis, making split-second decisions alongside Dr. Thorne. He watched as humans pushed themselves to their physical limits and beyond, displaying a tenacity that bordered on the suicidal by Concord standards. Yet somehow, they persevered. As the hurricane's second half engulfed the facility, they managed to evacuate the threatened sections. The building groaned and shuddered under the storm's renewed assault, but the combined efforts had secured its critical systems and reinforced its vulnerable points. In the emergency command center, exhausted humans and aliens monitored the facility's status as the worst of the storm passed over them. Atmospheric interference had prevented Drax from contacting the inevitable justice, which Kvort privately considered fortunate. "Your species is remarkable," Lyra said to Dr. Thorne as they watched the storm monitoring systems. "Most beings would consider these conditions unsurvivable, yet you treat it as merely inconvenient." "We've had a lot of practice," Dr. Thorne replied with a tired smile. "Earth doesn't make survival easy, but it does make us adaptable." The storm raged through the night, but by morning, it had begun to abate. As dawn broke, damage assessment teams ventured outside to evaluate the facility's condition. The surrounding landscape had been transformed, trees uprooted, new waterways carved through the terrain, the eastern hillside dramatically reshaped. Yet human recovery efforts were already underway. Emergency vehicles arrived from inland areas less affected by the storm, bringing supplies and additional personnel. Temporary structures were erected with astonishing speed to replace damaged sections of the facility. 3 days later, the inevitable justice arrived in Earth orbit, bringing the full diplomatic delegation from the Galactic Concord, led by Ambassador Zalix, a venerable member of a crystalline species known for their balanced judgment. The delegation descended to the surface for formal first contact proceedings. Kvort, Lyra, and Zorp stood alongside Dr. Thorne as the ambassador's shuttle landed at the newly cleared landing pad. The signs of the hurricane's devastation were still evident, but the efficient human recovery efforts had already restored much of the facility's functionality. Ambassador Zalix emerged from the shuttle, their crystalline form refracting the morning sunlight in iridescent patterns. They paused momentarily, environmental sensors clearly registering Earth's harsh conditions, before approaching the waiting reception committee. Ambassador Zalix, Kvort greeted with a formal bow. "Welcome to Earth." "Commander Kvort," the ambassador acknowledged. Your reports have caused quite a stir in the Concord. A technological civilization on a Class 15 Deathworld is unprecedented. Dr. Thorne stepped forward. Welcome, Ambassador. I am Dr. Eris Thorne, representing Earth's diplomatic corps. We are honored by your visit. Ambassador Zalix studied the human with undisguised curiosity. The honor is mine, Dr. Thorne. Your species has accomplished something remarkable. Not merely surviving, but thriving in conditions that most Concord species would find intolerable. We just call it home, Dr. Thorne replied with the understated humor Ford had come to recognize as characteristic of humans. The formal proceedings were held in the facility's main conference chamber, which had been hastily but effectively restored after the storm. Representatives from Earth's various nations joined the Concord delegation for the historic meeting. Admiral Vrex was notably present, his scaled features set in barely concealed disapproval. Kvort had submitted a full report of Major Drax's actions during the hurricane, which had apparently caused significant political complications for the Admiral. Ambassador Zalix opened the proceedings with customary diplomatic formalities before addressing the unique circumstances of the encounter. The discovery of your civilization presents the Concord with an unprecedented situation. Never before have we encountered an advanced species from a Class 15 environment. This requires adaptations to our usual protocols. A human representative asked, "What exactly does this classification mean for Earth's relationship with the galactic Concord?" Traditionally, the ambassador explained, worlds are classified based on their habitability for the majority of Concord species. Class 1 through 5 are paradise worlds, ideal conditions with minimal environmental hazards. Class 6 through 10 are standard worlds, requiring some adaptation but generally comfortable. Class 11 through 15 are deemed death worlds, environments so hostile that they are considered effectively uninhabitable without extreme measures. And Earth is a Class 15? The human asked. The most extreme classification, yes. High gravity, atmospheric toxins, extreme weather patterns, dangerous wildlife, tectonic instability. The list is extensive. Dr. Thorne smiled. Yet here we are. Indeed, Ambassador Zalix agreed. And therein lies the fascinating paradox. Your species has not merely survived, but built an advanced technological civilization in conditions that, by Concord standards, should have prevented complex life from evolving at all. Admiral Vrex chose this moment to interject, which raises legitimate security concerns. A species evolved under such selective pressure would necessarily develop traits that could be destabilizing to the galactic community. Kvort noticed Dr. Thorne's expression remained diplomatically neutral, though a subtle tension appeared in their posture. Lyra, who had been analyzing data throughout the crisis, spoke up. With respect, Admiral, our observations suggest the opposite conclusion. Humans have certainly developed resilience and adaptability, but they've also evolved remarkably cooperative social structures. During the recent crisis, they demonstrated altruism, self-sacrifice, and collaborative problem-solving at levels that rival or exceed Concord standards. Zorp added, if I may, their communication patterns show a species that values consensus building. Their humor, while often incomprehensible, serves as a social bonding mechanism in crisis situations. Ambassador Zalix seemed intrigued by this assessment. Commander Kvort, you've had the most direct interaction with humans during an environmental crisis. What is your evaluation? Kvort considered his response carefully. Humans are indeed shaped by their harsh world, Ambassador. They possess physical endurance, psychological resilience, and problem-solving capabilities that are exceptional by our standards. But these traits have made them cooperative, not conquering. They instinctively band together against environmental threats. The real lesson of Earth is not that danger breeds aggression, but that common challenges foster community. The ambassador's crystalline surface shimmered slightly, a sign of thoughtful processing. A compelling observation, Commander. Admiral Vrex was not so easily convinced. Pretty sentiments, but the fact remains that humans have evolved in conditions that would kill most Concord species. Their psychological makeup, must reflect that evolutionary pressure. You're not wrong, Admiral, Dr. Thorne spoke up. Humans can be aggressive, territorial, even violent. Our history has dark chapters that we don't deny, but we've learned from that history. Our harsh world taught us that cooperation and mutual aid are superior survival strategies to conflict and domination. The discussions continued for hours, with arguments and counterarguments presented from both sides. Kvort noticed that the humans remained remarkably patient throughout, even when Admiral Vrex made thinly veiled insinuations about their potential threat to galactic stability. Finally, Ambassador Zalex called for a brief recess. During this break, Kvort approached Dr. Thorne, who was standing by a window overlooking the recovering landscape. Admiral Vrex has considerable influence in the Security Council, Kvort said. His concerns, while exaggerated, may sway the final decision. Dr. Thorne nodded. Politics appears to be a universal constant, Commander, but I trust that reason will prevail. The ambassador seems inclined toward a favorable view, Kvort offered. Your people's response during the crisis made a strong impression. We were just doing what humans do, Dr. Thorne replied. Adapting, surviving, helping each other through the storm. It's built into us after millennia on this death world of ours. When the conference reconvened, Ambassador Zalex presented the Concord's preliminary decision. After careful consideration of all factors, the Galactic Concord extends an invitation to Earth to join our community, not as a standard member, but as a special classification affiliate. Murmurs ran through the human delegation. What does that designation entail? Dr. Thorne asked. It acknowledges the unique nature of your species and your world, the ambassador explained. You would have all the rights and protections of Concord membership, with additional provisions recognizing your special environmental adaptations and potential contributions to the galactic community. Admiral Vrex looked displeased, but offered no further objection. The decision had apparently been made over his protests. In particular, the ambassador continued, we would propose a knowledge exchange program. Your species' ability to survive and thrive in extreme conditions could prove invaluable to Concord expansion and emergency response protocols. In return, we would share technological and scientific advancements that might benefit Earth. The human representatives conferred briefly before Dr. Thorne responded. Earth accepts this invitation with gratitude and looks forward to a productive relationship with the Galactic Concord. The formal ceremonies concluded with the traditional exchange of symbolic gifts. The humans presented the Concord delegation with a small, sealed terrarium containing various Earth plants, a miniature version of their chaotic but vibrant ecosystem. The Concord offered an interactive star chart showing the known galaxy, with Earth now prominently marked. As the proceedings wound down, Kvort found himself standing with Lyra and Zorp near the facility's observation deck, watching humans and Concord delegates mingle in the carefully controlled environment of the reception area. What happens now? Zorp asked, his gelatinous form shifting contemplatively. Now, Lyra replied, we learn from each other. I've already identified 17 distinct adaptive mechanisms in human biology that could revolutionize our understanding of evolutionary processes on hostile worlds. And perhaps, Kvort added, the Concord learns that our careful categorization of worlds as habitable or uninhabitable needs reconsideration. If humans could evolve on a Class 15 Deathworld, what other possibilities have we overlooked? The conversation paused as Dr. Thorne approached, walking with only a slight limp from their healing injury. Commander, I wanted to thank you personally. Your intervention during the crisis likely prevented a serious diplomatic incident. I merely followed the true spirit of the Concord, Kvort replied, to seek understanding before judgment. Still, you took a risk, one that's appreciated. Dr. Thorne glanced toward where Admiral Vrex was reluctantly engaging with human scientists. I suspect not everyone shares your perspective. Change comes slowly to the Concord, Kvort acknowledged. But encounter by encounter, it does come. Speaking of encounters, Dr. Thorne said with a hint of mischief, some of our extreme sports enthusiasts have expressed interest in introducing Concord representatives to rock climbing. Any volunteers? Lyra's feathers flattened in alarm. Deliberately scaling vertical surfaces for recreation. It's perfectly safe, Dr. Thorne assured her. Well, mostly safe. Occasional broken bones, but rarely anything serious. Zorp's form rippled with what might have been laughter. I'll pass, but I'd pay good credits to see Kvort attempt it. Kvort found himself considering the invitation with unexpected interest. Perhaps there was something to this human approach to danger after all. I might be willing to try, under proper supervision. Dr. Thorne grinned. That's the spirit. You know, Commander, I think you might have a bit of Deathworlder in you after all. As the reception continued around them, Kvort looked out at the recovering landscape beyond the facility. Earth was still a Class 15 Deathworld by any objective measure, storm-ravaged, tectonically unstable, filled with dangerous organisms and climate extremes. Yet somehow, in this hostile environment, intelligence had not merely survived but flourished, creating a species that faced down daily dangers with resilience and even humor. Perhaps that was the true lesson of Earth, that the line between hostile and habitable was not as clear as the Concord had believed. That life, in all its stubborn persistence, could find a way to turn even the most challenging conditions into home. And perhaps, Kvort reflected as he watched humans and aliens cautiously beginning to bridge their differences, that adaptability was the most valuable trait of all in a vast and unpredictable universe.